Hello again. My name is Moolman. I'm a Fujifilm X photographer, and I would like to give you my opinion of the Fujifilm X-Pro3 after 1 year's use. I got my camera in December of 2019, and rushing out to the job, I was slapping the camera together, putting a battery in it, putting cards in it and formatting them and getting it ready. And it was such a pleasant surprise to get to that job and pick up the X-Pro3 and have everything be so familiar to me. It was wonderful. What I love is that it's almost identical to the X-Pro2 in feel and in size. The grip is maybe there's a bit more space for your fingers to grab it. It feels so familiar. I've had my X-Pro2 for almost 3 years now, and it's a bulletproof camera which I absolutely love. It's never failed me in any situation. And so to pick up its successor and have it feel so familiar is wonderful. Another change, of course, is the bigger viewfinder. It definitely makes a difference for me since I started wearing glasses, that holding it up I can see my scene so much nicer, because obviously with your glasses it'll keep the viewfinder away from your eye a bit. So it's quite nice to get right in there and be able to see so much as you do with the X-Pro3 viewfinder over the X-Pro2. It's annoying then to go back to the X-Pro2 and feel it's like it's a little bit narrower. But this is obviously for somebody wearing glasses. If you're not wearing glasses, the change is there and noticeable, but it might not be as pronounced for you if you don't wear glasses. The biggest change, of course, with the X-Pro3 is the flip screen at the back. This is what got so many people annoyed. The thing is, it helps you focus on taking photos. You know, using the Fujifilm system with the brilliant live EVF that you have, you can see the shot when you've taken it. If you're using the EVF, you can see your exposure. You can see exactly what your frame's going to look like the second you hit the button. Why would you want to go chimp afterwards? Just keep shooting. The flip screen is a nice addition because it allows you to shoot from low angles, compose differently. I shoot skateboarding as well. But both with weddings and skateboarding, I find that it helps me a lot to get into tricky positions, and just to have that screen flipped out like that and then shoot from different angles has turned out to be quite a useful addition to the camera. So I was worried that this would make the camera a little bit more flimsy perhaps, but the way it's protected down the side, the camera body is protected here and here, and the screen doesn't quite sit flush with the bottom, so that gives it a bit of protection. If it gets knocked from there or at an angle like that, it's not going to hit the flip screen. And with a year's usage, shooting, like I said, everything from weddings in the pouring rain to skateboarding in the streets of Johannesburg, it's been absolutely wonderful, and it hasn't ever bothered me. I would actually miss it. Someone mentioned to me once, but how do you shoot overhead? That if you want to flip the screen down and shoot it overhead, how do you see where you're pointing at if you want to do it? And the trick is quite simple. All you got to do is turn the camera over, and there you go. Shoot with the camera body upside down, and you can get your frame there and see what it looks like. Every now and then, you meet the person who's so inquisitive, or your client who just wants to see the photos right now, and they say like, oh, can I just see the back of your camera and see what the picture looks like? And it was genuinely the best thing ever to just go like, yes, sorry, I can't show you, it doesn't do that, and just show them the film simulation on the back and look at the puzzled look on their face. It was fantastic. It's like, that was at times just what I needed to do, because you want to get the client to leave you alone so you can carry on doing your job. When it comes to image quality, the X-Pro3 does not disappoint. I was very, very happy with what I was getting out of my X-Pro2 and my X100F, but this new sensor, its great ability to handle very high noise is absolutely spectacular. I've always loved the Fujifilm system's ability to shoot at very high ISOs and make it look almost like a fine film grain. I think a lot of people these days have forgotten what ASA 1600 film looks like, or 3200, and how lumpy and fuzzy those images were, and yet we want to moan about the fuzz, that a little bit of noise that we see in images now when our cameras shoot 12,800, and it's so weird for me. My perspective is such that, but do you understand what film would look like at 3200? And yet these cameras are so smooth. From my experience in the little bit of photojournalism that I've done, I know that I feel that it's way more important to get the shot as opposed to worry about exactly how it's going to look. For me, it's far more important to capture a moment at a wedding, a candid, unposed, uncontrived image. That's what's most important, and to do so in a way that doesn't detract from either the moment or the environment. So I wouldn't want to use a lower ISO and shoot with flash. I love the fact that I can use my Fuji system, just bump the ISO up, my shutter speed's high enough to freeze the action and shoot the images. I shot these 2 videos on my X-Pro3, straight from camera, downloaded soundtrack, a few cuts. That's the final shot that you see, or this final video that you see. There's no exposure, there's no grading, it's as it came out. Something else I'd like to talk about is the weather sealing on the X-Pro3. At the beginning of 2020, just before the lockdown got to us in South Africa, I went and shot 2 or 3 weddings, I think, where it absolutely belted down with rain. And the cameras performed flawlessly. They were used well, you can see from the pictures here how soaked the cameras were. You can see how soaked I was in that weather. It was proper, I can't even tell you, it was a proper downpour, as like we get in Johannesburg in South Africa. We get really big raindrops and very, very heavy rain. And the cameras performed flawlessly. My X-Pro3 and my X-Pro2 were both soaked. I made sure that I kept the front of the lenses as clean as possible. I usually have a lens cloth in my pocket just to give them a wipe every now and then. I did shoot with the flap down in the rain. That didn't matter much. Like I said, I've got a lens cloth in my pocket. I would just take it out, wipe the screen before I closed it back up. It was an indestructible system. It didn't bother me at all. I didn't flinch for a second to use it in the rain. Fujifilm has built a proper professional system with the X series cameras that can be used in any environment and perform flawlessly. When it comes to battery life, the X-Pro3 is amazing. It feels a bit better than the X-Pro2, which was already no slouch. I routinely get between 600 and 700 shots per battery in either camera. And the way I achieve this is I set the power save to switch off after 15 seconds. So if the camera doesn't detect any use, for 15 seconds it'll power down completely. And then I also set the camera to shoot in high performance mode, which means that it'll react very quickly and switch on quite quickly. So if it's sitting by my side and I see something, I can hit the button, by the time I've got it up here, it'll take an image. And that's a nice quick switch on to image reaction time. I use the EVF very often. Actually, most of the time I'm using the EVF because I can see my exposure as I'm shooting, and I find that quite handy. So yes, EVF on, but with that 15-second power off and the high performance mode switch on, that's what gives you the very long battery life in these cameras. My favorite feature of the X-Pro series of cameras and the X100 series is the optical viewfinder, which is also an electronic viewfinder, which is also a hybrid viewfinder, and that to me is invaluable. It allows me, when shooting on the optical viewfinder, for most lenses from 23 and narrower, to see what's happening outside of my frame. And I love that ability because it allows me to document things like a street photographer would, or like a cinematographer who sits behind his screen and he can see actors running around outside of his frame, and he knows when someone's going to come into the frame or go out of the frame, when something interesting is going to arrive inside the frame. And to be able to shoot like that with an optical viewfinder is wonderful. And to be able to switch then with just that lever over there, to be able to switch from optical to electronic viewfinder in an instant, and then see what your exposure is doing and see exactly what your image is going to look like, allows me to spend so much more time on watching people and watching reactions and anticipating moments, because I can adjust my exposure and adjust my frame so much quicker using this combination of optical viewfinder and electronic viewfinder. And I think that it's something that is so underrated, or people don't understand what a wonderful ability that gives you to be able to switch between the two. Again, have the ability to see that exposure, see your composition live as it's happening. That makes these cameras absolutely wonderful for me. I can't tell you enough how much I love that feature. The fact that I can go from optical to electronic viewfinder and back in a split second, see what's happening outside my frame, brilliant. I don't want to have to live without that ability. That's the bottom line. I absolutely love that my camera can do that. Another standout feature of the Fujifilm system, which is epitomized so beautifully in the X-Pro3, is the analog control set. The fact that all your settings are done by a dial, it's all analog. I just have to look down at my camera and I can see what my aperture is, what my ISO is, and what my shutter speed is set to. And I can change and adjust them up and down like that with a dial. It's brilliant. What's even better is that I can actually hear the clicks. I can hear click, click, and I know that my shutter speed is changing by half, going from 250 to a 500 to a 1000, just like that. And I can see that my aperture is 2.8, but if I go click, 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 it's on f4, click, 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 5.6, just checking, 5.6. And that's brilliant because I'm shooting it so much more intuitive. I know that that's wide open, that's 2.8, that's f4, and I'm going back and forth, and I can just feel click, click, click. I can change my dial over here, I know exactly where it is, as opposed to looking in the back of the camera perhaps, or maybe looking through the viewfinder and have to see things. I can shoot like this with one eye open and just change and look around me and just, I know I need to go to f4, I need to be 5.6, shoot back and forth like that. That's brilliant. That, on this camera system, that is what makes especially the X-Pro3 for me stand out. It's all so quick and intuitive. It really is. It's not button push, turn a dial. It's one dial, one dial, one dial. Brilliant. That is where the Fuji system, in my opinion, is head and shoulders above anybody else out there. This is what makes the system so great for me. I use the Fujifilm system because I feel it suits me and my preferred style of shooting perfectly. I've bought into the system because I believed in it. I believe in the system, and that's why I've spent my money on it. Nobody has given me the system and then asked me to talk about it. I've purchased the stuff with my hard-earned money, and I absolutely love picking up my camera and making photographs every time. It's just such a comfortable, wonderful tool to use.